My name is Maithreyi Seetharaman. I'll be the host of this conversation with a man who is a Hollywood mogul. There is no one better, in my opinion, to have a conversation about highs and lows and a life of learning than Jeffrey Katzenberg. I'm going to try, Jeffrey, to try and distill more than 40 years of a career into a few lines for those of us who are joining us either online or in this arena tonight. And it's not going to be short. I'm going to try to keep it really short. From interning for a Democratic mayoral candidate, John Lindsay, at 14, to becoming Paramount's boss's Barry Diller's PA, or as Jeffrey likes to sometimes describe it, his first job as a gopher, to being the reason some of Paramount's most iconic movies even exist, breathing life into things like Star Trek, or even the Indiana Jones series, Saturday Night Fever, Footloose, you name it. He was also pivotal in reshaping Disney's strategy. If anyone remembers the song Circle of Life, please thank Jeffrey for reinvigorating Disney's love for animation with movies like Lion King, Aladdin, The Little Mermaid. The list is too long to go into. And when he left his gig as the chairman of Walt Disney, he founded the groundbreaking DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen, the home of many of my personal favorite movies, from Shrek to Madagascar to who does not love Kung Fu Panda. Jeffrey, in the past few years, has made another pivot, co-founding a new media and technology company called WndrCo in 2016. It's a venture capital firm that invests in sectors that are completely different from where Jeffrey's come from the future of work software, consumer technology, and cybersecurity, as well as in companies focused on the consumerization of software. I think I did his career some justice there, Jeffrey. I don't know if you'd agree, but welcome, and glad to have you with us. I'm going to kick this conversation off with something I've heard you speak about a lot. It's your mentors, people you've co-founded companies with, your venture capital firm, for example, people you've worked with, and you've always called them your mentors, people who you have learned the most from. Tell us what the key learnings have been from some of these folks that has shaped the Jeffrey Katzenberg of who he is today.
Thank you, and thanks for having me. Appreciate being there, although not as fun to be remote, but appreciate the opportunity. Well, each and every one of my mentors and/or partners, I think, have very much shaped me, my understanding of the business world, understanding of philanthropy, politics. The list is fortunately long. I had a couple of amazing mentors as a teenager in my young 20s in politics and government. Sid Davidoff, Dick Aurelio, John Lindsay, who was mayor of New York. And what I learned from them and has stayed with me very much is really about service, the importance of service, our civil enterprise, our government, the things that make our world go around, our world work, is so much supported by service and by people in service. And I've always come to respect and have a very, very high regard to the people that take care of us in our everyday lives, and to make sure that, I certainly appreciate them. So whether it's a policeman, a fireman, a sanitation worker, obviously the troops around the world that, make the world safe for all of us. I really admire and appreciate service. I had Barry Diller, was arguably maybe the most influential mentor for me in my career. I met Barry when I was 23 years old, and worked for him for 10 or 11 years. He's really just one of the smartest people I've ever met. He's a Renaissance man, has just such a great insight and intellect around almost any topic. And and I learned so much for him, and he was such a guiding uh, hand in my career. Michael Eisner, who I worked with for almost 18, 19 years. Um, uh, Again, I think Michael's a great storyteller, and his just boyish enthusiasm for stories and storytelling, and was something that very much influenced me. I then, partnered with really two of the greats of the world, David Geffen, arguably one of the most successful entrepreneurs, certainly in the media and entertainment space, maybe the most successful, and Steven Spielberg, um, who has been and continues to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest, storytellers of our time. It's an amazing lineup of people to have shape you in your career. I think one of the most important things I learned actually from David Geffen was about philanthropy, the importance of giving. Um, my father was a great influence for me in philanthropy. He said to me, take care of those that take care of you and that cannot take care of themselves. I've never forgotten that.
So
Kirk Douglas. So anyway,
it's
I
a
know it's a
long list
long list.
indeed. I mean, that's a humongous list of mentors. It's almost seems to be now your time to do the mentoring when you've switched from the media industry into the tech space. How is that defining the 40 years of watching people, the human nature, how is that defining how you look at the folks you invest in, how you mentor them? What are you looking for, and what are you giving back at this point to the people and the companies that you're investing in, like Aura?
Sure. I will, but I'm going to actually tell you because it's interesting. Because I'm still learning, maybe even more now than I have in a very long time. Because as you said, about 6 or 7 years ago, um, I sort of dropped the mic on my media and entertainment career and made a decision to pivot and just start all over and do something completely new and unique. And in that regard, once again, I found an extraordinary partner in Sujay Jaswa, who maybe most of you have never heard of today. I guarantee you, 10 years from now, when I rattle off my list of people and I say Sujay, along with those very illustrious names, almost every one of which you know and have heard of, you'll know that too. So he's been even though he's half my age, he's twice as smart as me, certainly in this area. Um, but to others that, today, I look for the qualities that have been consistent for me in being in looking for great talent over my entire career, no matter what I was doing. Um, I sometimes talk of myself as being a truffle hunter. I'm looking for the rare, unique and special person, and those qualities are uh, perseverance and grit, uh, ambition, uh, a great idea, a drive, um, you know, to have good values. I think, values matter a lot. And they get tested as you grow, as you have success, as you have responsibilities. Having those good qualities, about values, I think become more and more relevant and important. Um,
Well,
so
the
there you
Aura
go.
team says that you're quite hands-on as an investor, as a mentor, and as a board member. So when you bring your decades of experience of making the kind of products that make everyone around the world smile, how does that translate to a company in the cybersecurity space? What are you telling your management team?
Sure. Well, the investing part of it is what gives us connection and gives us a real stake in what we're doing. But the thing that is most interesting to me is actually company building, and how do you connect with consumers. And you talk about cybersecurity. The thing that got me excited about this is just the need, how vulnerable we all are today. It's remarkable, how our entire lives now, there's a parallel universe that we engage and live in every single day online. All of us, in every facet, we live on, these devices. They really do. They're no longer, you know, just sort of assets to us. They're essential to us, and yet we've done very little, if anything, to protect ourselves as we have become more and more vulnerable in that. And just to give you a quick little stat on this is that cyber crime in the US in 3 years went from 3 billion to 6 billion to this last year to 10 billion. And it's out of control. 1 in 4 Americans in some fashion, shape, or form is subject to some kind of crime being committed against them in their online day-to-day life. And so whether it's robocalls or phishing or every conceivable kind of scam that is, we can all think of, it's really just out of control. And so the idea of trying to go fix that, to give people a viable solution for that, sort of became mission driven for us. And Aura, which is run by this amazing founder and entrepreneur, Hari, is on that mission. So supporting him as he builds out his company, helping him in his sales, and in particularly in the go-to-market, whether it's through enterprise channel or direct to consumer. I think these are things where I have not only a lot of experience, but a valuable Rolodex, and I'm not afraid to use it.
You're definitely not afraid to use that Rolodex for many, many things. And I can see where the line, which may have been unclear 6-7 years ago to many people who watch you do that pivot, is getting clearer and clearer, especially considering that here at the festival, artificial intelligence has been core to everyone's conversations. If I can ask you, I know you've been on record saying, and I quote you here, I don't think there's any industry that generative AI will disrupt more than the creative industry. Back in 2007 and 2008, you were at the heart of negotiating one of the Hollywood strikes. You managed to sort that out. We now know that there are two bodies, both the writers and the actors, who are very much sticking to their guns, and this is disrupting an industry. It is a crucial time for Hollywood and beyond. If you were still wearing your hat as a media mogul, what would you want seen done in terms of the negotiations, and what would the future of AI look like within that parameter?
So that's a tricky one. If there were a simple answer and or solution, we would have arrived there. Yeah, but I'm just saying, we're now 5 months into, devastating strike. The consequences are becoming more and more dire. What I would say, and I would try today to see both sides of this, because that's the only way you get to, a resolution here. The thing that's interesting about strikes, there are a few things. One, every single strike has two things in common. First is they start, and the second is they end. All of them. And interestingly, the length of a strike, there is no corollary between how long a strike goes and the outcome. And that's true whether it was a lockout or a walkout. So length of strike isn't actually ultimately going to be to anybody's advantage. Therefore, the sooner people get back to the table and talk with one another, the better. If I could wave my magic wand, since so many of my friends remain in the media and entertainment space, I literally would bring the sides back together into a room with the understanding other than for 6 hours sleep a night. No one gets to leave until you get to a deal. But now to go to the substance of what you're talking about. With regard to AI, the challenge is there is no way of knowing today what the impact of AI, what the AI tools and capabilities will be a year or two or three from now, let alone in perpetuity. And so trying to define for a long term something that is in its infancy is actually not a possible, there's no possible outcome to that. Neither side would agree today to say, well, this is what's going to define how these tools are used and or constrained based on what you know today of something that was introduced, ChatGPT, literally less than a year ago. It is a valuable tool to be used by creators in their work, whether it's writers or storytellers or artists. But I also, the other side of that, it's a productivity tool for a producer in terms of being able to create things, in a way that, just like when special effects came along, it created complete new opportunities. When Steven Spielberg made Jaws, he cut a piece of plywood in the shape of a fin of a shark and painted it gray and pulled it behind a motorboat. That was the 1970s. So
there is so much that it needs to still grow, but I know in government hallways, when I speak to politicians, policymakers, in boardrooms, there is a lot of caution. There's, as you say, a lot of excitement about the potential. There is a lot of caution. I know WndrCo is investing in a tempered way in AI. Talk a little bit more about a sensible way forward where we do gain from the technology advances, but the fear factor that we're seeing, for example, in Hollywood, that is displayed right now, we can temper that as well. How do we walk this middle path before jumping off a cliff?
Well, I don't think for this audience in this moment here, we should be getting into the details of how you get to a resolution of this, other than there is one. Right. That's the only thing that's important to know right now is that people are going to go back to work. They have to go back to work. And so I don't want to offer an opinion today other than to say, based on the knowledge I have about this, is there is a solution that protects the creators, the writers, the authors, and also gives the value for the studios. If the studios aren't able to get the value out of AI, independents who are not subject to this agreement are allowed to go use these tools they'll put themselves out of business. So there needs to be a balance. I have to say that I believe in unions, I believe in collective bargaining, I believe in the guilds. I also believe in successful, profitable businesses who can hire that talent and give them employment. You can't have one without the other. And so I'm just frustrated in that everybody seems to be talking past one another, and they're driven more by emotion and ego than they are about getting a deal done, which could get done in days if people would get to the table.
That's an interesting point you bring up, because there also seems to be a cultural difference in the way, say, for example, Hollywood views or the media industry views difficult times, failures, and the way Silicon Valley does. Failure is looked at as an experiment. If things go wrong, you can do it better the next time in Silicon Valley. You have seen your share in your rise to the very, very top of difficult times, angst-filled times. You have grown from them. You can see that in your career trajectory. If you look at Disney and the very public exit that you had, and then that followed up with DreamWorks. I mean, what is the mindset when you face difficult times? What is Jeffrey Katzenberg's mindset when you face difficult times and then look for the next step? What do you do? What are the steps you
For
follow?
me, yeah, for me, it's always about, learning from your mistakes, growing from these experiences. There's that, expression, you know, that what does not kill you makes you stronger. And I would say many of my most important and valuable lessons actually were learned. I've learned more from things that I missed and made mistakes than from things that I had success. You know, Success, trying to replicate your success usually doesn't work. You have to keep evolving and growing. The circumstances change, the audiences change, taste, styles change. And so, I think the things that, my misses are the things that, I lived through the transformation from hand-drawn animation to CG animation. Um, I would think it was one of the hardest things that I ever had to do, which is to go from analog to digital. Now the whole world's had to do it in various respects, but I had an existential moment, which is if I didn't do it, it was clear the writing was on the wall. My company would go out of business.
What was your big learning with Quibi, for example? I remember when you were at the Fortune Brainstorm Tech announcing Quibi with Meg Whitman, you were so excited, so pumped up. What went wrong, and how did you use the lessons you learned from that very public failure to determine how WndrCo now invests, the direction you take today?
Well, I think the thing about Quibi is that, there are a lot of things. It's certainly complex, but I'm not sure I could give you today exactly why it failed. But I would put at sort of the core of its miss is that we did not have product market fit. We had not proven that out before we basically put the bet down on the table. When I think of companies and people starting companies, I think of it in two sort of critical stages to it. There's 0 to 1, which is the creation of the idea, the building out, getting some revenue, having a proven model, see that there's a path to profitability. It's almost like a two-stage rocket. The first one gets you off the ground, and sort of breaking gravity in it. And then the next one is where it actually takes you to the stars, the moons, wherever you're going. And that's sort of 1 to 10. And the problem with Quibi, which I still think was actually a fundamentally good idea from a storytelling, from a creative standpoint for the consumer, but as a business, we went to 1 to 10 before we had proven 0 to 1. And and that revealed itself pretty quickly. And the thing that actually I'm proudest about and would share with other founders and entrepreneurs, which is when it was clear that we didn't have product market fit, Meg and we could not shut the company down fast enough and give the money back to our investors. I was humbled by the failure of Quibi. I was humiliated by losing money. I had never, ever lost money for backers, investors, financial supporters of mine in my career until Quibi. And so getting $600 and some odd million back into their hands at least mitigated my humility.
That's such an interesting focus to take. I mean, how you can mitigate the feeling that you have after 40 years, where you say you never lost money. So I've got to ask you this, as the topic is highs and lows. What was, in your head, the career highlight for you till now? What's the moment that you're most proud of?
it'll be such a disconnect for you and for this audience, but it is actually the thing I am proudest of. And it's actually 22 years ago, or this couple of days ago, which was after 9/11, which was an extraordinary, gut wrenching, you know, tragedy for our country. Like most Americans, I was feeling, what can I do? How do I help? I'm not a fireman. I'm not a police officer. I'm not a soldier. How can I do something to help? And I ended up partnering with George Clooney, and we created this sort of 2-hour TV show. It was a fundraiser called Tribute to America. And it was a telethon, the first time ever in our country, where every single television, cable, and radio station all carried one single solitary program. And more than anything else, more than the couple of $100 million that it raised, which was the most successful fundraising ever, it was a moment to sort of bring all of us, our country, together for a moment, and to, salute the first responders and their families. And so I just felt like I had contributed at a moment of time, and our country was really in a dire moment. And it's the thing I'm proudest of, not the movies or the TV shows or the animation or Broadway or those. I mean, they're great, and but the thing I remember the most was this moment of coming together for the country.
And you're doing it all over again. So my final question to you, Jeffrey, is that you are Joe Biden's 2024 campaign co-chair. We're sitting here in Europe trying to understand what to expect in this election campaign. When you are organizing these fundraisers, what's the mood like within the folks you're talking to? Are they worried? Are they concerned about either the president's age or the competitor? What is the mood like? So we can walk away from this interview getting a Jeffrey Katzenberg insight into the Democrats.
Okay. Well, I am talking to you from Chicago, where there is right now today a couple of hundred of the DNC leadership is all here talking about the plan. So appropriate last question. I'm going to say a bunch of things. One, I've known Joe Biden since the 1980s. He's literally one of the most decent human beings I have ever met. His heart and his values are inspiring. He gets up every day, and his first and pretty much only thought is, what can I do for America? How do I make this country better? How do I improve it for the lives of, the working people of this country? He's genuinely passionate about it. In terms of his age, which I know is the sort of topic du jour, that everybody is focusing on, my answer to you is his age is his superpower. He is vigorous. He works extremely hard. His knowledge and his experience is what has made him so effective. I think there's no running from being 80 years old, and I remain convinced that that's not the issue. He still has a fastball. I have had the opportunity to spend a pretty good amount of time with him over these last few months, and he is hard at work. And these little faux pas that people find and try and create memes and stuff out of, or, because he walks the wrong direction coming off of a stage, or, trips on a sandbag. We all do those things. And it really isn't what matters. What matters is he's done an exceptional job. He does have the stamina and the ambition to complete that job, and to do it over the next 4 years. Politics, which I have been involved in my whole life, we started with that. You started with that. Politics is not about wishing. Politics is about choosing. And the choice is going to be very, very clear and incredibly stark. Do you want a good man with good qualities, selflessness, and a passion to do the right thing? Or do you want on the other side a person who gets up every day when he was president of the United States and his first, and I'm pretty sure his only thought is, what can America do for me?
Well,
he's corrupt. Anyway, I could go on.
You could, but we have run out of time, Jeffrey.
But the choice will be clear.
The choice will be clear, and I think President Biden has a big, fat black book of yours and a Rolodex of yours to lean on in this run-up to the next year's elections. Jeffrey, thank you so very much for joining us and sharing your insights. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.